Good afternoon. Today I am in Carlisle IT to interview Mr. Craig Fisher. He is leader in the design engineer department. And well, Mr. Fisher, how are you?
I'm doing good, thank you very much.
Well, tell me about yourself.
Well, I'm engineering manager at Carlisle. I've been here for 19 years. My major responsibility is new product development. I do have 3 kids. One's in college, one's going into college, and one's in high school. So yeah, that's a little bit.
Okay, you are engineer in what specialty?
Well, I graduated from the University of Arizona in mechanical engineering. I would say my major responsibility at Thermax is new product development though, but mechanical is a pretty diverse field where going back to when I was in school, we learned not only mechanical, electrical, heat transfer, dynamics, there was some civil stuff, so it's pretty well rounded.
For some reason, I thought you were industrial engineer or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, industrial engineering isn't particularly common in the U.S. schools, as common as it is down in Mexico. I mean, there are some slight differences. I would say mechanicals, it gets into maybe a little bit more diverse as opposed to industrial, but yeah, there is some overlapping functions.
Yeah, as you said, it's very common because we have a lot of factories here.
Yeah, exactly.
Companies.
Yeah.
Why did you choose to study engineering?
I think going back, even as a young kid, I remember playing with Legos and it probably just revolves around I like to solve problems. So that was probably my temperament, and that was engineering is something that interested me. I originally went into aerospace engineering, and in the U.S., aerospace and mechanical is very similar for the first 2 years. So about halfway through, aerospace market was down in the U.S. at the time. And so I realized that if I wanted to get a job, I had to go into mechanical. So that's sort of how I ended up but I actually ended up liking it though.
Mechanical was the best option.
Yeah, it was the most diverse engineering field, and pretty much anyone who was coming out of there was getting hired at the time. So, the ironic part of it is I work for an aerospace company now, and I've done a lot of different applications. I've worked with NASA. I've gotten a lot of, I've done some tours with them, and so even though I had aerospace interests, even though I'm mechanical, I ended up having the two sort of tied together from a career perspective.
So it was easy to find a job in mechanical?
Yeah, I mean, in the U.S., this is going back 22 years or so. I had an internship with it was called the Naval Facilities Engineering Service Center, and through them, I sort of traveled to different military bases and worked on power plants, and did work on vibration monitoring, boilers, leak detection surveys, and I think having a good internship. I came back to school, finished my senior year. They kept me on the payroll while I was going to school, and I was doing AutoCAD drawings at the time, and they hired me right out of school to go back. So, pretty much everyone that was in mechanical engineering, they were getting jobs at the time also.
Okay.
Yeah.
What were the main differences between what you studied and what you have developed in your professional practice?
Yeah, so I mean, the thing about mechanical is, being in Carlisle, it's a manufacturing plant. In school, there's a lot of theory. You're learning, you might be learning a lot of things that you might not ever use out in the field, but I would say that for me, what school prepares you for is you're always solving problems, at least, in mechanical engineering. So it's more about that skill set carries over to the actual workplace, about how to go about solving issues, how to think out of the box, how to brainstorm, some of the theory that you learn, it can apply, but, I might, like heat transfer. I took a couple of semesters of heat transfer, and over 20 years, I've maybe used it a couple of times. But the times you use it, it's extremely useful, and you might have to go back and sort of reference some things, but for me, the real world is a little bit different than just academics in that.
The real world, right?
Yeah, you're trying to do things that actually make money for the business,
That's right.
as opposed to talking theoretical, and there's differences.
Yeah, there's a whole sea of difference between theory and practice, right?
Right.
It's not the same when you see it in school and when you see it in your job.
Correct.
What abilities are needed to develop your work?
I would say you have to be continually adapting. What I mean by that is you have to take a career approach of continuous learning. You have to come with a desire to learn something new each day. I'll say not only in my own career, but people that I've seen successful here are people that continually learn and adapt. Because you're always going to have a changing culture, whether it's different management, different ways of thinking. You have to be able to adapt to those styles. But you want things that have made me successful. I'm a problem solver. I adapt. I continuously learn. Like a commitment or your own accountability too. Working hard. So I guess those are some of the key criteria.
Is it difficult to adapt, or it was difficult at first?
I think adapting, I would say sometimes that's related to people's temperament. You can see that some people are more willing to change than other people. It's sort of, and that's something that we've learned in our own training. There's something called a change style indicator that sort of is a measure of your own internal temperament. So, and it correlates to how, for me, I'm like an originator on that index, and so that sort of means that I easily change, and there's sort of an innovative aspect to me. Other people might be on the conservative side, so I'd say those type of people, it's a little bit harder to adapt on some situations.
What activities do you do daily?
Daily, sometimes I come to work with a plan, and I don't get to anything on that plan. So it can consistently change. And that's just being in business. You're gonna have things that are fire, I can have an agenda for the week, I'll give you an example for next week. We have some visitors. I have a customer visitor on Monday that I'm picking up, mostly related to supply chain, nothing related to engineering, but I'm sort of hosting that. So it's just, you can say that's not really engineering, but it's part of building customer relationships and, things to grow the business. So ultimately you try to do things that are good for the business, even if it's not related to your core. Wednesday, I'm supporting supplier development. We have a vendor here. They're going to be doing some technical, they have a new resin. There's some cost productivity savings that we can do by implementing that. We're also taking the opportunity for them to do some training with some of our process engineers. And then on Friday, we have another customer, potential client that isn't a customer now, but they want to come and see what our capabilities are. So I'm sort of going to showcase that and sort of convince them on why they should be doing business with us. So in 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 terms of those sort of fringe things, then I'm driving the normal daily, keeping up on the projects, and we have enough. I mean, the rest of it's all engineering, but it might be 100 different things.
I think it's like a part of everything, right?
Yeah.
Have you managed? How have you managed to deal with work and your family relationships?
I mean, I'm a firm believer in living a balanced life. And what I mean by that is, if you have a chair with four legs, if you knock off one of the legs, the chair falls over. So it's important that you balance your career and your family life. I try to be involved with my kids and their activities and support. One of my sons in a big golfer, so make sure that I get him in tournaments and take him there. And I have another kid that's working on Boy Scouts and trying to be an Eagle Scout. So I think it's important to balance, put as much commitment with your family as what you do with your career. I mean, I try not to put too much long hours in that work, or if I do have to do some, at least I have my laptop in the living room and at least trying to engage with the rest of the family while I'm doing something, as opposed to being in the plant all the time. Yeah.
Have you ever refused a job due to ethical reasons?
I would say that ethics are a big part of my core values. Something that I put emphasis on as far as making decisions with integrity. It's something that I promote with my employees also. I mean, they need to have good judgment and make good ethical decisions. So as far as I would say that, occasionally you come across decisions you have to make in the business where there's an obvious choice between what's ethical and what's not. And, unfortunately, not everyone sort of looks at that. They might be only concerned with their own metric, and you might have to be the voice to sort of promote that. So, that's obviously important to me.
Okay. I think that has to be very important for every person, right?
Yep, it should be.
Mm-hmm. Do you consider that engineers must have a social commitment?
I think so. I mean, everyone has different gifts. An engineer might have different gifts than other people, from problem solving, having a good career, maybe some financial stability. And so, I mean, along with that, I think there's a commitment there to give back in terms of like a social or setting, in terms of offering your time or offering resources outside of your normal work environment. So I'm a believer in that. I think it's a good practice to work on those things, even whether it's mentoring, what have you. I mean, anyone who's had a successful career sort of looks back and says, you know what, if that person went ahead and spent that time with me, or if I went and gotten that funding from that person to help me go through school or this or that. So I think anyone that's been successful probably has examples like that. And so it's important to give back in those terms.
An example could be like teaching someone.
Right, yeah, like the mentoring. In engineering, mentoring is really important. is something that, when I'm bringing up engineers, I always assign them a mentor within our group to sort of help, at least initially. And I have an open door policy too, where, they have direct access to me too on certain things. So, even this year, we're trying something new. We're trying to create a continuous learning environment. And so, we have some guys that have been around for a long time, and, once a month, they're expected to put together their tech talk, and prepare something that is informative for the group so that the younger engineers can learn upon.
And it's a great satisfaction, right? When you get the best from a person.
Sure, definitely.
What passions you the most about your work?
I think the thing that drives me is I'm a competitive person, so I like winning. I like to see the business growing. I take pride in that, when I started the company's about 10 times the size in revenue than when I started, and a lot of that is new product development. So that drives me, along with, being innovative in those solutions with customers, and getting customers having a feeling like, yeah, Thermex, Carlisle, that's who I'm going to call first, because I know that I'm going to get good technical response, good delivery. They're going to be committed. So yeah, that's sort of what drives me, I guess.
Okay, it's good to be part now of that growth in the company.
Yep.
What advices would you give to aspirants to future engineers?
Be hungry, and what I mean by that is be eager to learn. Normally at a young stage, money's not as important as learning. I would say the more experience that you can get, that's what's important when you're an aspiring engineer, and being in the right environment. You want to be in something where it challenges you. You want to have a boss that challenges you, that makes you think outside the box. So probably, I guess, best advice would be is try to pick, in a lot of engineers that come in, there is sort of I always say, don't expect everything to be, you to get trained on everything, or, you need to get out there, learn things on your own, fail, it doesn't matter, failing's okay. It's all about going through that process of self-discovery and learning, and how to learn how to solve issues on your own. I've seen the people that are successful are the ones that are able to do that.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to learn. Trying something new and failing and do it again.
Yeah.
What can engineers do to build a better world?
Well, I know I've said it a lot. It sort of goes around solving problems and how you solve problems. Sometimes people get into the mode of, we've always done this way, or being able to think outside the box, being creative, even if things that something that doesn't work. I always encourage to do something different, even if it doesn't work, because I don't discourage the failure. If you're not, Elon Musk says it with Tesla, if you're not failing, you're not innovating. So I'm a believer in that. And if you look like someone like Elon Musk, what he's done with his various corporations, he's innovating in a lot of different areas and making the world a better place. So I think a lot of people could probably look to him as what people need to be doing to make the world a better place. But it sort of revolves around that.
Okay. Well, Mr. Fisher, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for this interview. I think that your answers and your advices are going to be very helpful for the future engineers and are going to help us to see how the business world works.
Sure, definitely. It was my pleasure spending the time with you today, and let me know if you need anything in the future.
Okay, thank
All right.
you very much.
You're welcome. Yeah. Thank you.
This interview left me with an important message, that if I want to be a successful person, I have to think out of the box. I have to be hungry for everything that I can learn. And when Mr. Fisher said to me that I don't have to be afraid of failure because that's the best way to learn, those words will stay with me for the rest of my life.